Coverkillernation debut this close to March. It's this close to Music Madness. It's crazy. It's really cool. We're here to talk about the new Amoral album entitled Fallen Leaves and Dead Sparrows. Now, Amoral is a band that has definitely gained a lot of attention throughout the past couple of years, and it's been traditionally through individuals within the Scandinavian region, especially Finland, not to mention also those who are closely intertwined with the band as far as the fan base is concerned, as well as those that perhaps are closely intertwined with the genre, people who follow the genre quite well. What genre that might be, you might be asking. This is something that kind of can encompass progressive metal, it can encompass hard rock, it could be very melodic at times, and the reason why is because a couple of albums ago, this band acquired a new singer. And the new singer just happened to be a gentleman by the name of Ari, who was the Finnish Idol winner. He was the third Finnish Idol winner a number of years ago. And he notably was able to do this by performing mainly metal tracks from bands such as Sonata Arctica, as well as Stratovarius and Iron Maiden, and, for good measure, also groups such as Billy Joel and Deep Purple. Billy Joel, of course, not being a group, being a person, but we all catch the point. The reason why it's continued to get a little bit of press is because the albums that have followed ever since Ari joined the band seem to be a bit of an about-turn. They seem to really kind of lose the luster of their original first few. The original first few definitely were getting some very decent reviews. In fact, a lot of people were really latching on to this band. They definitely seemed to dig it. They were still a very underground success story, but at the same time a success story just the same. With the presence of this very large face, you would think that perhaps this would be something that would only really pay them off in leads with a lot more international exposure, better sales, but at the same time it's been the albums that have kind of been, for at least some people, the real suffering point, as there's been the inclusion of some, what some people would call quirky death metal, as well as there not being as much of a traditional sense to their music, while at the same time trying to maintain a little bit of their old luster, but just not nearly enough to keep them satisfied. Now, with this album right here, it's 8 tracks, 54 minutes in length, which means that we have some very long songs on this album, some songs that push the 9-minute boundary. And really, right off of the bat, some of the initial press and some of the initial buzz has said that it's starting to look a little bit better, a little bit more like the old Amoral style, a little bit more like the albums that they used to know, but there's still something that is really kind of missing from it. There's still something that just doesn't seem quite right. I think I can solve the problem. However, it's not going to be an easy one to really pinpoint, so we're going to try our best. Whenever you listen to this album for the first time, you really kind of experience a great number of things. For one, you're being exposed to Ari's voice, which kind of has this soft spot to it. It does have a decent range, but at the same time, in moments it seems as though it's very motionless, as though it doesn't move very far up and down the registers, unless it's really necessary. It's something that also, at some moments, sounds a little bit distant by comparison to the music. However, whenever you continue on with this album, and whenever you continue to get a little bit more in tune and affiliated with his style, where you kind of understand it a little bit better, you start to understand and recognize that this is kind of his natural tone. It kind of suits what this album is really able to deliver for a listener. It's able to deliver some very nice soundscapes. It's able to really blend a lot of the higher intensity stuff with a lot of nice low-key progressive beauty to it. So there's a lot of different ideas and aspects to this that certainly can please a multitude of fans in the progressive realm, and even some would say maybe even the power metal realm. I would actually go more so with the melodic metal realm. And there's even a track that does try to pull off what those people have called quirky death metal, which it's not very good. It's actually one of the weaker portions of the album, something that I don't see myself revisiting all of that often, aside from perhaps either a quick chuckle or a quick re-examination. Whenever you start to listen to this album multiple times, you start to understand that there are other things about it that kind of seem a bit off. For one, it definitely seems like there's a bit of an over-exuberance going on. Now, what do I mean by that? I've talked about this before. What do I mean? It definitely seems like this is an album and perhaps a band as of recent memory, because their song lengths have gotten longer and a lot of the aspects of their musical style have definitely kind of moved a little bit more toward this pattern. It definitely seems like these songs at some times can seem a bit listless, a bit dry, almost as though during some moments where they are doing their best to construct something that is able to kind of grasp itself with a little bit of hypnosis, so to speak, with some great musical element, it just seems like it's not going and not flowing very far and not flowing very quickly. Either that, or it seems like it's not going to a real a concrete location at the end point, almost as though this is something that just took place just to lengthen the song, even though that's not truly 100% the reason that it happened at all. So this is kind of a unique situation. It's a different situation. It's something that you're not very used to. It's something that it's kind of hard to pinpoint and kind of hard to target because, of course, we are not the songwriters. We're not the individuals that pen these tracks and really kind of thought that this was something that was going to build a certain mood, a certain emotion, either that or fulfill a certain task or perform a certain task. So it's very difficult to kind of diagnose that problem, as you can probably tell, but this is something that is based around a real sincere opinion and something that's really good-tempered in nature, not to mention meant to be constructive. It just seems as though there are some moments of these songs that could be trimmed a little bit. And this is not to say that the producer didn't do their work, and this is also not to say that the musicians didn't do their work in preventing themselves from really overindulging themselves. Instead, it's just something where it seems like they're trying to do a little bit too much with way too little, and it doesn't work out very nicely. What actually happens is that it becomes very disjointed. You've probably heard me say multiple times in the past that an album sometimes gets the flow, either that or the wind knocked out of it, and this is a great example. This is something that almost happens in some cases track by track, where it has a real good, a solid flow that's being established, and things really seem to be getting going, and then it just seems like all of that momentum, all of that force, all of that power, all of that resonance is just kind of fading. And that fading power, what you're supposed to do and what you really want to have happen as a listener is have it fade down a little bit, but have it lead to something that's going to act as a crescendo piece. It's going to act as a way to either unify the whole entire narrative together, either that or at least deliver one heck of a finale or something that's really going to make you feel like going through the journey was definitely worth it. A payoff is probably the best term to use and probably the most official. I feel as though this album sometimes really lacks that payoff. It really lacks that, and as a result, at some points in time, it feels very, very listless. As far as the differentiation is concerned and the variety is concerned, this is an album that does possess that. This is one that is able to really tread the fine line between the melodic and the progressive. This is definitely one that does have a solid, if not, just above average vocal presentation by Ari. Now, this is something where, there's going to be various opinions based on this, based around what he's done with the Idol competition over there in Finland, and based around also his solo work. So there's going to be various opinions on this. However, it just seems as though, if anything, there's still a lot of those growing pains that are not only going on within the fan base of Amoral, but also somewhat within the band themselves. They're still exploring this new style. They're still exploring this new side of themselves, where they're expanding these compositions and, really trying to make the most out of every minute that they are playing, and they're still learning how to do that. And, I say learning almost as though it's a terrible thing, like they never knew how to do this before, because they did. They really had all of these tools, but it just seemed to work better back then. It just seemed to have a little bit more punch, a little bit more flair, a little bit more of a zest to it. And with these, it doesn't seem to have as much of a punch or as much of a zest. However, from a progressive standpoint, these calmer moments definitely do perform the task of calming a track down and kind of delivering that little harmonious mid-piece that is sometimes present within prog rock opuses, such as Close to the Edge by Yes. There's a very large, very ambient, nearly ambient portion of the song Close to the Edge right there, laced within the middle of the song. But what happens is that it's sandwiched between two very high-powered parts of the narrative. So it works very, very well. Not to mention it's also very, very memorable. Not to mention it also grants a very natural ambiance to it. Something that still these guys are working through. Amoral is still working through. As the score is concerned, I really have to say that the overindulgence or underindulgence based on your real view of what it is kind of something that really hinders this album. It's one that doesn't really encourage a lot of multiple listens unless you're really, really, really obsessed with this band. Either that if you're really trying to force yourself to get into it. There's a lot of musical goodness here, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things that actually are positive. It's just that things like this, these little negative composition points are really things that stand out so vividly in my mind that it sometimes becomes very, very difficult to ignore, and that's a real shame, because sometimes those are the only things that trap an album from really becoming very worthy of further exploration, or very worthy of a higher score. But for this right here, I got to give it a 70 out of 100. It's a good effort. It's definitely a better effort than their previous 2 discs. It seems like they're getting better with each passing one, which means the next one or the one after that may be the masterpiece that they pen with Ari in the band. However, right now, this is not it. It's definitely got elements where you can see the formation and the cogs turning, the gears are going, and they're starting to get there, but they're not there yet. So this is one that, if you're a fan of the band and you've been disappointed with the last 2, I still actually would recommend that you approach with a little bit of caution, but still listen to it, because this may be just enough of a reminiscence factor of perhaps days of old that you may actually really get into this album. As for the casual fan, I definitely would say give this a try at least, because this may be the era that you enjoy. There are going to be people out there that are going to enjoy the Ari-era better than they're going to enjoy the original era, and that's really their opinion. But I also implore that you check out the remaining albums that this band possesses in both eras and kind of make a judgment call for yourself. For me, I'm more of a fan of the classical work, but that's just me. What did you guys think about this album? What do you guys think about this band in general? What do you think about Ari, and what do you think about the Finnish Idol competition? Let me know in the comments, and we'll talk to you guys next time.